What I think Obama did was he redefined race in America as not a binary between 88% white and 12% black, but he came up with this word diversity that replaced class differentiation or class oppressions or class grievances.
The leftists who were pushing for equality of outcome insisted that if there were differences in socioeconomic outcome that you could identify by group, then that was a priori evidence of systemic oppression, let's say. But they fell astray of a certain peculiarity with regards to group identity, which is that group identity is actually infinitely fragmentable. And so out of the initial identity political theorists, you got the intersectionalists who made the case that, well, you were oppressed, let's say if you were Latino, and you were oppressed if you were female, but the joint interaction between Latino and female made you even more especially oppressed. And what you see happening on multiple fronts in consequence is that the litany of potential ethnic groups increases, the number of them, and then the number of interactions increases, and that increases exponentially as you add more identity categories. And what that essentially means is that the problem of computing equity starts to become technically impossible, because every single person's identity is so complex on the intersectional front that there isn't even a hypothetical way of deciding whether any given socioeconomic outcome is equitable. And so when I walked through that, I thought, well, Western culture had actually solved that problem several thousand years ago by pointing out that the appropriate level of analysis is the individual, because the individual has a unique identity that is in some sense a consequence of all their multiplicitous group identities, but singularly, what would you say, singularly representative of each individual. And so then you let individuals compete and cooperate in a fair market, and that's the best possible way of moving towards the right balance between equity and wealth. That's what it looks like. And
I think that's right. And you can see that where this leads to, it's logical that you would end up with a Ward Churchill or Elizabeth Warren that by needs would fabricate a victimized identity. She was the first, quote unquote, a Native American professor of law at Harvard on that basis alone. And then on the other realm, when you start to replace class interest or economic status with race, then the left really hit on something. I think it was really Barack Obama between 2009 and 2016, he took a rather ossified word diversity and he recalibrated it to mean we're not going to look for victims on the basis of their income anymore, because that's mutable. In fact, Marxism never worked in the United States because this free market capitalism and a lot of free land in the 19th century was always a movement of upward mobility, and therefore you would never have a continually oppressed class. In fact, today people go up and down, out and in of the middle and the upper middle classes. So what I think Obama did was he redefined race in America as not a binary between 88% white and 12% black, but he came up with this word diversity that replaced class differentiation or class oppressions or class grievances. And he said, it's 30% of the population we're gonna call them non-white and therefore they're diverse. And then where we ended up, it was this ridiculous situation where, to take a caricature, you have Meghan Markle, the Duchess, who is half black, lamenting to Oprah Winfrey, who is a multi-billionaire, about their shared grievances as being non-whites, or LeBron James complaining. And so that was a very brilliant thing the left did, because once they made race the arbiter of oppression and being the oppressed and the victimized, then class didn't matter anymore. And now we have this elite who says that they're not white in a particular percentage, and all of a sudden we don't really care about the circumstances of their home, their car, their wealth, their income. It doesn't matter anymore. They're going to be perpetual victims on the basis that they are diverse. And the left really massaged that in such a way that I don't think anybody quite knew what was going on until they sprung it on us.